Ukudissector. Saqala singaka. Saba ngaka. Manje sesingaka. Ukudissector. Saqala singaka. Saba ngaka. Manje sesi. Woo, woo. Welcome to another episode of The Dissection. So much is going on, and this episode is going to look at MK Party and also at the Vodacom versus Makate issue. And there's some internal guazing happening within the MK Party that is worth talking about. So let's jump straight into it. Dr. John Hlophe has been suspended from the MK Party. It's unclear why he has been suspended, and he was absent today from the questions to the president. And we saw some musical chairs or some power contestation in the last few days while Jacob Zuma was away. He was in Burkina Faso. And part of that entailed the removal of Colin Makubele as the chief whip of the MK Party. Now, all of this is coming at the wrong time. But anyway, after that, Colin was removed and Des Van Rooyen was put in as the chief whip of the party. Within 24 hours, Jacob Zuma reversed that decision and, Des Van Rooyen moved from being the weekend special to being the one-day special. I don't know, maybe at a later stage he'll end up being the 12-hour specialist. I don't know, because his time keeps going further and further down in terms of how much they retain him for particular roles and functions. So as things happened, now where we are, Dr. Mandlakaise Hlophe is suspended from leadership and all his positions within the MK Party. Des Van Rooyen back to the backbenches. Colin Makubele back as chief whip. And now we have a situation where the MK Party does not have leadership in parliament at this particular moment. And there's still a cloud under what has happened. Why has it happened? Now, when you then take this together with the fact that Floyd Shivambu was also fired from the party just a few months ago, right? Before he formed the Maibuya party, he was Secretary General of the party. Then you look at all of this up and down and up and down and up and down. I mean, Floyd joined MK Party last year by August. And by November of this year, he's totally in a new political organization, no relationship whatsoever with the MK Party. That's the up and down that I'm talking about in terms of the musical chairs of the parties. So let me give you my thoughts around this particular moment for the MK Party and what I think they need to really be thinking about at this point. The MK Party is doing well in Parliament in the ad hoc committee. They're asking strong questions. They're showing that they have a depth of talent and they've been having a good moment overall. Now, when you then start having these other issues of, human resource turmoil, drama, that takes away from the good work that the party is actually doing in the ad hoc committee. And that's something that I think the party has to be mindful of, that this is damaging to their perceptions and their performance in other arenas and other areas. That's number one. Number two, I do think that the MK Party does have an obligation to actually explain in full what is happening here. Because, a lot of people voted for them. They came in on a very, very strong mandate for a new political party. And when people give you that mandate to represent them and to, be the custodian of their interest, to protect them from their worst case scenarios or concerns, you do have to keep them in the loop when certain things happen. This, I think, is significant. So I think that we should actually be hearing from the spokesperson of the MK Party, and we should be getting clarity from the MK Party as to what is going on. What's the long and short of what's going on with this particular Dr. John Hlophe dispute, because he is somebody who was brought in as a person of high stature. He was the former judge president in the Western Cape. He's an accomplished legal scholar. He has a PhD. And when you put that all into context, this particular development, either Dr. John Hlophe has made a very serious mistake and the party is justified for removing him, or there's some kind of a power struggle that's happening, and then the public that supports the party does have a right to know what is happening with the internal guazing. The guaz velocity when it relates to human resource management within the MK Party right now is increasing. And that's something that creates a red flag. The opponents of Jacob Zuma have often criticized his management style. They've criticized the rotating chairs, the midnight decisions, and this seems to be in keeping with that particular criticism. Now, if the party wants to show that they can, rise above these type of criticisms, I think that they have to navigate these disputes differently. Now, there's a long-term issue here that I want to point out. Long term, when the party is going to 2029 and trying to attract talent and people who are going to be on the party list and maybe even in the local government elections, there's some people who are going to be worried about the risk factor now, because you join the MK as a significant member of society with the following, whatever the case may be, and there's a risk that you may not last 1 year. And that risk is now being, substantiated by the number of people who've come in with high profile names and also come out. Although it must be said, there are other people who've come in and stayed, right? If you look at Advocate Dalimpofu, he's very stable in his relationship with the MK as far as we know. So in as much as I'm saying that there are these significant changes, also we must be mindful that it's not everybody who's had the same, outcomes, so to speak. I mean, if you think about Floyd Shivambu, in as much as I'm adding him to this list, I think that he was also moving in a way in the party which did put him at crosshairs, and at his departure from the party was looking very inevitable at a particular point, because he was picking fights that were not strategic for him. He was moving in ways that were not strategic to his long-term stay in the party. So in as much as, yes, it's true, Floyd Shivambu left, others have stayed, right? And this Dr. John Hlophe situation does look as if the party is continuing with a problem of retaining its talent and managing its relationships internally. But at the same time, we don't know the full story, and we have to wait and see what happens. And I'll be curious to see what the reasons that are preferred for this particular suspension are. And, there's a lot of gossip and whispers and all of that. I'm not going to give that any airtime until we have some substantive information in front of us. But as things stand, there are going to be those questions around, if you join the MK party as a prominent person, will you be able to sustain your membership until maybe the next election? Right, now, let's talk about Vodacom. Vodacom has settled with Makate. Finally. Mr. Makate, well done. We don't want to see you on I Blew It, huh? We don't want to see you there, Oga. We don't want to see you now buying people Lamborghinis, divorcing, getting a slay queen, a Hosh Karimama. We don't want to see none of that, sir. Stay with the woman that you know. Don't go for those yellow thighs that tell lies, Baba. Just stay at home. Congratulations to you, and I salute you. I salute you for your tenacity, your resilience, your determination, and your refusal to be bullied by this corporate entity that has tried to break the back of your convictions, sir. I salute you for that. And, we have to really celebrate this victory for Makate. And the amount that they settled for is undisclosed, right? But Nedbank has sent an estimate to its shareholders and to its I don't know who they'd be sending these emails to, quite honestly. But what they're estimating is that this could be between 350 million and 660 million rands, which is a sizable amount of money. The original offer from Vodacom at a certain point was 47 million. So if you got 350, which is on the low end, or 660, which is on the high end, either way, that's much better than the offer that the Vodacom CEO gave. And the Vodacom CEO gave a very disrespectful offer that time around. We must be very clear on that. Now, just looking at this, I just want to say, firstly, it seems to me that Vodacom appreciated that they were not going to win when they went back to the Supreme Court of Appeal. And they were very concerned that the Supreme Court of Appeal would then determine a quantum that was still in the range of billions. It would have taken Makate more time to get to that point, because you got to go through the court case, you got to go through everything, you got to wait for the judgment. But ultimately, they know that the Concord ruled against them on the fundamentals of the case. They know that the Supreme Court of Appeal ruled against them on the fundamentals of the case. There was not a lot of breathing room for them, really. And they knew that going back to the Supreme Court of Appeal, that was going to be something where those judges were going to take a dim view of them having been told to relook at certain elements of that case. And they were more likely going to still find in the way that they found before, regardless of what Vodacom presented. And you need to be aware that throughout this litigation, various courts have said Vodacom was dishonest. Various courts have determined various legal issues here already. Number one, he did present the idea to Vodacom. Number two, there was a contract. Now, there's someone else who can say, no, I had the idea first. Wait. But in the context of the Vodacom situation, Makate brought the idea to Vodacom. They acknowledged that he gave them the idea, and then they had a verbal agreement with him that they would pay him for that particular idea. When the idea started making money, then they got flaky. And the other form of dishonesty that was just pointed out by various courts is that even the CEO of Vodacom at the time was now claiming that it was his invention. In his autobiography, he was right. And the Court mentioned this in their judgment, by the way, that, look, the CEO is claiming that he's the one who invented, please call me. Can you see the level of corporate dishonesty that he was having to deal with? So I think it's a win for him. Vodacom knew that, they were going to be in trouble later and the risk was not worth it. But I also think it's very shameful that they moved in the way that they did. Number one, they tried to squeeze him just through outlasting him, to outfinancing him, taking him through a legal process that would crack him. That was the whole strategy. Now, what they criticized Jacob Zuma for, where they say, no, Jacob Zuma does Stalingrad. Vodacom was doing Stalingrad since 2006 or 2005. That's when they should have paid this man. We're in 2025 now, 20 years later. If you think about that, I don't think that's something that we should give Vodacom any credit for. And obviously, they also realized that they were not doing well in the court of public opinion, right? Which is why they started moving in the way that they did, because they were coming across exactly what they were doing here is as bullies. This was bully behavior. And I think it remains shameful that they did this. And it's actually quite interesting. This year, Vodacom has been moving in a little bit of funny ways, if you think about it, because they wanted to do the merger with Maziv, the other internet provider, the one that provides a fiber to the home. And that merger was blocked by the Competition Commission. And then at some point, before it could go to the tribunal, then all of a sudden the merger was cleared. Apparently the minister was approached and they spoke to him and they said, look, I don't know all the details, but apparently there was a political negotiation. All of a sudden, all of the objections to the tender fell away, and then they were able to, not the tender, the merger fell away, and then they were able to do that particular merger. So, yeah, man, this was, that was just an interesting, move. And one of the things that people were raising prior was that Vodacom didn't want to pay Makate before they had done the deal with Maziv, because that would have affected maybe their own books and maybe the cost of the deal or whatever. Now they've done that deal with Maziv. Now they then say, let's settle with this guy. Let's get that out of the way. That to me, there's some hosh curry there. I don't want to lie to you. It's hoshy. Some hosh there. Unethical is basically what I'm trying to say. And then I think I want to make a final comment here on the role of the media. When the Supreme Court of Appeal was saying, pay this man, and the calculations were leading up to him making billions, the media, some media houses in particular, they started attacking Makate, consistently attacking him, left, right, and center. And I thought, that's a very peculiar position that they're taking. And they were arguing Vodacom's case and saying, no, but Vodacom can't pay him because of this reason. Vodacom can't pay him because your data will go up. Vodacom. And they were trying to manipulate us to support Vodacom against this black man whose idea Vodacom had agreed they would pay him for and spend 20 years taking him through the rigmarole. And the media was trying to manufacture consent to get us to side against Makate. I thought that was unethical. See, these media platforms, mainstream and these digital large media platforms, sometimes they behave in ways that are very hosh curry. And The Makate story for me was one of the examples where I saw that happen. And I thought, this is very shameful what they're doing, because they are participating. It's David versus Goliath. And the media is taking the side of Goliath, saying, why is David so disrespectful? Who gave David his stones? Why is David thinking that he can take? What happens when the giant Goliath falls? Who is going to take care of Goliath's family? What? The things we've seen in the media. But anyway, I'm gonna end it here. There's more content that's on the way. Look out for that. What did you make of the Vodacom decision? And what do you make of all of the drama that is folding out in the MK party? Let's meet in the comment section. Till the next one. Ho sholuza, kule zontaba, hoshkari izofeleje.